The Hangar Z podcast welcomes back Dr. Tania Glenn.
And I see a lot of patients diagnosed with PTSD, but it's a moral injury. So with a moral injury, you don't have like the startle reflex and the flashbacks, but you have the anger, the despair, the negative thought process that is consistent with PTSD. And then you have a massive amount of shame, blame, and guilt. And it's the woulda, coulda, shouldas, which I refer to as the devil's playground in our minds, right? The woulda, coulda, shouldas. And it's very interesting because a lot of times when we're doing the eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy, the moral injury comes up a lot.
Welcome back to the Hangar Z podcast. Today we're joined by a familiar and respected voice, Dr. Tania Glenn, returning to the show to dive into one of the most critical topics facing our profession, mental wellness. Dr. Glenn brings more than 30 years of experience working with first responders and members of our military, supporting those who operate in high-risk, high-stress environments. She's the author of 10 books, including 2 children's books, and is a sought-after keynote speaker and instructor, presenting across the country on resilience, wellness, and performance. Tania has also contributed insightful articles to Vertical Valor magazine, further connecting her work to the aviation and public safety communities. We're excited to have her back to continue this important conversation. For more information about Dr. Tania Glenn and her team, go to taniaglenn.com. Thank you to our sponsors, Shotover Systems, Wysong Enterprises, and Robinson Helicopter.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Stand by here. Looks like you're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, through the shotgun, through something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and partnered with Vertical Valor magazine. I'm your host, Jack Shanley. With me today is the creator of the Hangar Z podcast, John Gray. John, how are you?
Good morning, Commander. Very good, very good. Honored to be here for this conversation.
Oh yeah, this will always be a good conversation with our guest, a return guest, I might add, and hopefully this will become regular. And we both think that it should. And if Tania has the time, we'll make that happen. So, we don't want to spend a whole lot of time on intros and stuff today because our guest has been on before. But we're going to talk about some specifics today. But to start, I'll just say that our guest today has over 30 years working in the industry of supporting first responders and the military. She's written 10 books, including 2 children's books. She writes for Vertical Valor magazine. How nice is that? We're lucky that she's part of the MHM team. And a lot of other things. So we'd like to welcome back to the Hangar Z, Dr. Tania Glenn. Tania, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be back. Really grateful to be here. Well,
we're very grateful that you are here for a lot of ways. We're going to talk about one of those right off the bat, But I will say that, we get a lot of questions about episodes and where should I start? New listeners say, where should I start? Or what are your favorites? And we have a lot of favorites. I mean, we really do. We're so lucky. We've had so many wonderful guests that make this podcast, what it is. But I go to episodes 176, 177 with my answer most of the time. And those are Tania's episodes. And it's because those episodes covered things that I wish I had known on day one of the police academy. Day one. I wish I had known all the things that Tania talked about for those 2 hours. And John, you felt the same way.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's become the focus of a lot of our conversations. As the podcast has evolved, we find ourselves talking about the importance of mental health a lot. So yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah. It's so I'm going to refer our listeners to 176, 177. Go back, listen to them, watch them, however you listener watch the podcast, check 176, 177 out, Dr. Tania Glenn. You will learn a lot more about her and her background, and you won't regret it. You will learn things that will help you. And that's what Tania's all about, helping people, helping first responders, helping our incredible military folks. And so we're going to start with something that's kind of personal to Tania, and she's all for it. She's all about honesty and transparency and realism, the reality of life. So Tania does something called Warrior Wisdom on her social media. Talk about Warrior Wisdom and talk about today's Warrior Wisdom that you posted this morning.
So my Warrior Wisdom, they're reels. And what I like to do is I talk about everything. I often put out like a viewer's request and put in the comments, what do you want me to talk about, or DM me. And we talk about everything. We talk about trauma. We talk about suicide. We talk about stress. We talk about solutions, treatment, depression, grief, all the things, boundaries, gaslighting, whatever you want to talk about, we talk about. I have found that just keeping it simple and quick and in layman's terms, people have really connected with that. While I could just go on and on for a long time about a lot of these topics, the hardest part is kind of keeping it condensed. But I get such great feedback from it that I really have just continued to do it for about 2 years now. And they're super fun. They're generally like shot in my front yard or my backyard. My German Shepherd running past, or a lot of times you hear her squeaking the ball. Yeah. My sweet assistant, Tanika, is the camera woman. So it's so simple to do. And, and just uploading them has so easy. But boy, the impact and the comments have been amazing. So I really love doing them. And then once in a while, I'll get just a little more personal and I'll talk about things, which is, of course, kind of what we had talked about starting this one.
Right.
And talking about the one I posted today. We filmed it yesterday. I posted it today. But I've had an interesting year. In December of 24, was told by a cardiac surgeon that after a murmur had been found that I needed to have surgery. And I'm sitting across from him and just complete denial. And he's like, yeah, you need to do this. And I was like, well, what happens if I don't? And he said, well, your mitral valve, your leaflets don't match up. And so there's severe regurgitation of blood. And he said, eventually, Tania, if you hit AFib, you're not going to be well. And he said, your quality of life is here, up, high. If it drops, we can't get it back. So we have to do the surgery at some point. And I was like, do you know how busy I am and how much I travel? And he said, I've heard.
The word's out.
From your other doctors. And word is out. He said, so I will let you wait for a little bit, but we have to do it. So I waited. I put it off for about 11 months. I did it in November because November is when my travel really starts to slow down. And I kind of prepped my team to respond to any critical incidents. Fortunately, we just had one. And I went through the surgery and I bounced back from everything. And, he was like, you'll need to stay home for 8 weeks. You can't travel for 8 weeks. And I was like, best I can give you is 6. And
negotiating.
That's great.
And I see now why he said 8 weeks, because it kicked my butt.
Yeah.
So I get through the surgery and I'm in the ICU, and the surgery was on a Thursday. Thursday was okay. Just, some reactions to anesthesia that I always have. Okay. That's to be expected. Friday was good. Friday did a couple laps around the ICU, my little walker, And then Saturday, I'm like, all right, Saturday is going to be better. And I just hit a wall. And I was laying there all day, sleeping most of the day. My family came by and I didn't eat and I just felt rotten. I did one lap around the ICU only because my nurse made me. Yeah. But I was like, I just don't feel good. And it was just a really bad day. So the nurse at night, it's approaching shift change. She's like, I don't like how today has gone. And so I think you need a pint of blood. And I said, well, if you think that, and she's like, I do. And so, she passes it off to the night nurse, and he came in and he's like, yeah, you need this. And I've never received blood before. And so he starts, and almost immediately I was like, oh, I feel so much better. Right. And I was laying there, and I was so grateful for this pint of blood. And what it made me realize is just the importance of acts of kindness. And I teach peer support teams all the time to go in, just it's acts of peer support. If I could pick another word for peer support, it's fellowship.
Mm.
And I talk about, but I'm the helper, I'm always in control. And I'm just like, I seriously wish I could find out who donated this blood, because I want to smother them with love. Like, I am so grateful. And they didn't have to do this, right? And I swore that night that I would never miss a blood drive ever again once I'm allowed to donate blood again. And also just how it must feel for a lot of people like your listeners to struggle with asking for help. But when someone does reach out, whether it's a phone call or a check-in or, hey, let's go have coffee or dinner or a beer, like how important it is to people that we know are struggling, that we say, I'm here for you, and let me drive you to a doctor's appointment. Let me come clean your house. Let me mow your lawn. Let me do something that can help you or give you a break from, childcare or whatever it is. Those types of things, those tangible things that we do, that I teach peer support teams to do all the time, just how important it is and what it's like to be on the receiving end of that. I have so much gratitude. Yeah. Right. And it was such a realization. And I'm so grateful. I'm in a space of absolute gratitude. And I feel like kind of sharing that message is impactful. Knowing I'm a type A, a lot of people in aviation.
Yeah. Are there really? There's a lot of type A's in aviation.
Right. And as hard as it is to reach out for help, maybe allowing someone to be like, hey, I need to do this for you, or we're going to do this for you, and allowing that to happen. And then just having that gratitude. I think it really, as human beings, as society, it's the best thing we can do for each other.
What an incredible message.
Thank
Clear,
you.
concise, simple. I look at your Warrior Wisdoms as almost like a motivational Post-it note, in the morning, where you look at it and it's real quick and it's real simple, but it's like, wow, your choice of Warrior Wisdoms are very, very good. And you're able to convey a quick message that's really impactful. That one really was extra impactful for me because my wife went through open heart surgery the same month that you did that, off of a heart murmur. She calls it vitamin G, that she has a lot of vitamin G now, gratefulness. She sounds exactly like you. It's very interesting to me that it's a heart issue where you get through it, you're bouncing back, and you're just thankful that they caught it, grateful that everything went well, grateful to the nurses. Oh my gosh, nurses, surgeons, everyone she had contact with. She was so thankful. Yours was a pint of blood, just a simple pint of blood, something that happens thousands and thousands of times a day to people around the world.
Yeah.
But that meant something to you. And it's clear why. I mean, you're in a place where, wow, it's scary. I'm sure that you're a tough person, Tania. You're very resilient and tough, but I'm sure you were scared. I know it. I don't have to even guess because I watched Tracy do it too. She was scared.
Yeah,
so it's
absolutely.
that gratefulness and thankfulness and comes out.
Yeah.
It just bubbles over after you get out of the surgery. So I really related to that one this morning. I showed it to Tracy, we talked about it. She agreed 100%. I love that you shared that.
Thank you.
Really, really nice.
Thank you. There is nothing like rolling into an OR and there's already like 8 people in there.
Yeah.
Like it is.
Yeah.
It is so intimidating. And it's like, thank goodness I'm about to get knocked out because, wow, this is a lot of people and there's a lot of things going on. And it's And there were conversations I had with Tanika. It's like, well, what if I die? Right. And everything was prepped, all, the will and everything and everything. But there were a lot of days where, we talked about just giving it to God and keeping the faith and staying strong and all that stuff. And then just coming out of it, the gratitude, the vitamin G, right?
Vitamin G. Vitamin G.
It's a big deal. Yeah. Yeah.
John, you're thinking about something. I can see it.
Yeah, I think what you just touched on transcends so many different concepts. It's from mental health to leadership to employee retention, just taking care of your folks. I always talk about how people don't remember the things that you say to them, but they remember how you made them feel. A simple act of kindness goes a long ways as far as letting somebody know you cared. It could be as simple, hey, can I deliver a meal for you guys, for your family? Can I set up a meal train for your family? Whether you're a leader or not, just taking care of the people around you is so important. Whether you're the one receiving the blood or giving the blood, it's a vital part of what we do. And I love that you brought that up. I just, like I said, it transcends so many different concepts. So I love that.
Thank you.
It does. And the analogy to people reaching out for help is a great analogy of that. Where you're the one that's providing that help all the time. And now suddenly something flips on you and you just go, whoa. And it probably, I'm just guessing, you tell me, it probably solidified everything that you teach. You just went, wow, I know I say that and I instruct that when I'm teaching like peer support. Mm-hmm. Wow, it's real. It's real. I just experienced it firsthand that a little thing can mean a lot. Mm-hmm. And that's so important. So important to especially the people that are struggling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever realm, physically, mental wellness wise, whatever it is, those little things mean a lot.
Yeah. I was teaching the Southwest Airlines Pilots Association peer support team last week. And I talked about this to them, and a couple of them went and donated blood afterwards.
Oh, that's great. That's no surprise, but that is really cool. Very good. Good start. What a good start to this conversation. Very valuable. And it's really amazing how everything that you're saying, Tracy said. I mean, going into the OR, she had a lot of people in there. There was a lot. And, because open heart, you're on a machine, for 2.5 hours, 3 hours. Mm-hmm. And she said too, wow, I'm glad I'm going to put under it. But, I hope everybody does a great job. It was really overwhelming. To see that. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, I know I'm having open heart surgery, but now you go into that room and you go, I'm really having open heart surgery. Look at all these people in here, all experts, all professionals getting ready to do their jobs to help me.
Yeah.
It really affected her. she remembered that vividly. And she, under anesthesia, you don't remember a whole lot of things, but she remembered that just like you did.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Many people were in there. Yeah.
Wow.
I remember, I think they probably sensed my panic because they're like, hey, we're just going to put some oxygen on you. And here comes a mask. And that was
it. Oh my gosh.
Knock me out.
Yeah. I'll take whatever you're going to give me here. I'm going to take a nap right now. So, well, we're glad that everything went well. You have now bounced back and you look great. You sound great. We're thankful that all of that went well. So keep up that vitamin G, Tania.
Yeah.
That's great. So for those people that don't know who Tania Glenn is, give us, you don't have to go into the detail that we went in on the previous episodes, but give us the thumbnail of how long you've been doing this, what you've been doing, and how you got to where you are.
Yeah. So I'm in my I've been doing it for 33 years. So approaching 34. And it was actually the ATF event at the Branch Davidian compound in Waco. That was when I was about 3 months away from finishing my master's degree, and that changed everything. And that's when I decided I was going to work with first responders and veterans. So I set out on this amazing journey. I have 2 offices in Texas. That's where I live. I live in the Austin area, kind of north of the Weird, in a town called Leander, Texas. My office is in Cedar Park. And my practice just works with first responders and veterans and their family members. And I do a lot of traveling and training and consulting. I tend to go to big events. I was at the Oklahoma City bombing and 9/11 with NYPD and Katrina and Dallas when the officers were killed. I was at Uvalde, and most recently last year, I worked a small portion of the mid-air collision that happened in Washington D.C., and then a big portion of my year was taken up by the Central Texas floods that we had going on.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've been to a lot of critical incidents where lots of people are dealing with extreme stress, extreme conditions, seeing things that no one wants to see. Your value at all those was something that can't be measured, I'm sure. But it provides you experience and knowledge as well for the next time. And I'm sure that you take things to the next one as things happen. Can you talk about, since we're on the topic, we actually had guests on that have been that were involved in the floods in Texas. Can you talk about that particular one? Because that hit home. You're in Texas. Can you tell us anything about that stood out to you?
Thank you to our sponsor, Wysong Enterprises. Wysong Enterprises offers specialty rotorcraft completion facility, focusing on solutions and installs for customers in various industries, including EMS, law enforcement, energy utility, forestry, tourism, security, and corporate applications across major OEM platforms. Visit us at wysongusa.com.
The topic we're going to talk about kind of first, like the moral injury, that the floods were a big moral injury event. I'll just talk initially about like my response. So of course, I'm laying in bed and it's raining and it's storming so loud. It's 2 a.m. I'm awake and I'm looking at my phone and just looking at, it's like 100% chance of rain for the next, 2 hours. Then it's 3 hours, then it's 5 hours. And it just rained and rained and rained and rained. There were two distinct areas that were kind of the hardest hit. One was obviously in Kerrville, where you heard about the Camp Mystic, little girls getting swept away, and a lot of people in Kerrville. And then the other one was actually about 5 miles away from my house, and that's where the Marble Falls area volunteer fire chief got swept away. He was such a kind human being. So had worked with him. I take care of that department. And so there's a lot going on. It was absolutely crazy. I think like July 28th, I was talking to my friends about how, last weekend, the 4th of July, and they're like, last weekend was not the 4th of July. It's like, I don't know where July went. It's just, it's just gone. Yeah. I know that in Kerrville, in that area, it went from flash flood watch to warning to emergency in 13 minutes. Like it was insane. And the devastation was so bad. Driving into Kerrville reminded me of driving into Uvalde after the school massacre. It's like you could feel, you feel the depression. And it's hard to describe like an area or a city as feeling depressed, but you feel it. Like you feel driving in, you feel devastation. And without even going to like the memorial, you feel it. Like it's just this sense of just sadness and sorrow and despair. And so we went to work. A lot of summer plans were canceled for our practice. I was doing some warrior wisdoms back then, and I remember one of my favorite ones back then was I was addressing first responders who come from departments that we don't have a contract with. And I was giving out our office phone number, and I was like, just reach out for help. We'll find money. We will find money. And the next day, we had 2 donors who donated $10,000 each. And so we had this funding for whatever agency that we don't have a contract with to come in. And so we were really, really excited about how well the community came together to support whoever needed help. And it was, in terms of a response, it was a lot of work. It was hectic, but I feel like we really all pulled together and pulled it off. And so, yeah, it was a tough summer.
From your perspective and the people that work with you, how do you measure I'm trying to find the word, success. I mean, do you feel it when you're connecting and you see it and feel it where it's tangible and you can walk away and go, wow, we really accomplished something today? And can you talk about what that is?
Absolutely. So I think, in the therapy room, it's when you start with a patient and they're completely traumatized and they can't stop crying, or they're choking back tears the whole time if they won't cry. And they are so beside themselves. And I think the thing about the floods, especially with all the innocent people who were swept away, is it was so raw. And so when you take someone and the first time they walk through the door, they're, if they've never been in therapy, they're terrified to be there. But they're so traumatized. And then we start working with them. We do the eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And we discharge somebody who is smiling, who is back to normal, whose spouse is thanking us for giving them their loved one back, when they're returning to work and they're returning to normalcy. You feel it. Like you see this transformation, and it's intense and it's amazing. And honestly, it's kind of hard to discharge people when you walk with someone from very, very traumatized and not doing well to like back to normal and happy. And it's like you feel like you're a parent launching them off to college or something. It's like you don't want them to go,
yeah.
but you have to, right? And so we do. But it is really, really tangible. It's also really tangible when we sit down with a group and do some education and we normalize their reactions and we talk about like all the things, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, that's exactly what happened to me. So now I know I'm normal, right? And so we love doing that. You feel it. And the gratitude, we feel it, right? Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tania, you talked about a lot of the major incidents that you've responded to. And as you're talking about those, I started to think about the article that you wrote for Vertical, Cleared for Recovery. Mm-hmm. In that article, you talk about the importance of having a plan in place to deal with a traumatic incident. And I just had this conversation on a different podcast yesterday, literally talking about the importance of having a response plan in place. Because when the emotions are high, that's not the time to come up with a plan to determine what steps need to be put in place. So as you've traveled around and been a part of a lot of these major incidents, can you talk about some of the things that you've seen that have been really effective as far as the agencies that had plans in place and what those look like? And maybe compare that with some of the agencies that didn't, that really highlights the importance of that plan.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the contrast between the Oklahoma City bombing and 9/11, where I was in New York with NYPD, right? The Oklahoma City bombing, there was no plan, right? And they threw together a FEMA grant, and the person who did it, amazing human being. She was completely overwhelmed. And then we went up as peer support teams and clinicians. They worked us 16-hour days. They completely burned us out. Like all of us just, wanted to get home, but we weren't ready to get home because we didn't know how to pace ourselves. And half the peer support people who went to the Oklahoma City bombing with me decided that they didn't want to do peer support anymore. I almost quit my career after that because I was like, I can't do this. And then you fast forward to 9/11 and NYPD's plan. They had a very robust mental health system in place with peer support and clinicians and all of that. And they were wise enough to know that they are really on the receiving end. So all they did was facilitate us coming in. And they paced us so well. Like our start time was 10 a.m., not 7 a.m., right? Our stop time was 5 p.m., not 11 p.m. Mm-hmm. And so, there is, again, the type A, I'm like, we can be here at 7. And they're like, no, you come in at 10, right? Because you're from Texas. We don't want you on the subways. Because personally on the subway, I met every New Yorker I could shake hands with on this and they thought I was crazy, but they loved us. And we were paced. And then at 5 p.m., we were out briefed every day, which did not happen in Oklahoma City. And then they were like, go enjoy New York. And some of those peer support NYPD officers came with us and just showed us like Little Italy or Chinatown, or we went to a Yankees game one night. It was amazing. And what happened each time we went up there is it was a 7-day deployment, and they would outbrief us, and they'd be like, "We would love for you to come back." And I was always like, "I can stay." At the time, it was before I adopted my kids. I can stay. And they were like, "We want you to go home so you can come back." They were very so good at guiding us and setting those limits. And each time we went back, we were ready. And we were tired at the end of each deployment, but each time we went back, we were so ready. What a contrast, right? They did such a great job. I mean, kudos to them. It was they called it PAPA, police officers providing peer assistance. And they had a very robust team structure, protocol, and self-awareness to know that they were our facilitators and really on the receiving end, and they weren't doing any of the direct contact. And it was amazing. And ever since then, I'm like, okay. And what I learned from the Oklahoma City bombing personally is how you pace yourself and how you allow others to pace you and how you stay grounded during deployments and those types of things. And it's really helped me a lot.
It's super interesting. Again, establishing a protocol that you merely activate when something happens versus when something happens, you're now trying to scramble to figure out, well, who is it we call and how long should they be working and what do we do with our folks? Something as simple as you brought up earlier, providing food for somebody after a traumatic incident. While that person may not want it, they might want it, and just the act of kindness that goes into having that in place. So I think those policies and procedures being well developed in the front of an incident is huge. Jack, did you guys have policies and procedures related to whether it's a mishap or I'm sure the agency had something for officer involved shootings and stuff, but what did that look like for you?
Yeah, they had a protocol set up for officer involved shootings, but that eventually evolved into a peer support type of situation much later. But through the 80s and 90s, it was pretty much just, if you were in a shooting, you went to see the doctor before you were released back on duty. And it was almost routine. It wasn't very thorough. It wasn't what it needed to be. But none of us knew any better. I mean, that's for sure. It's much different now. There's much more peer support on the department. It's very organized. As a matter of fact, while Tania was talking about 9/11, I thought about one of our guests and our friend Deb Dickerson from LAPD that went to Ground Zero at the same time frame as a peer support person from LA that went to New York. And she said the exact same thing that Tania said, that they were welcomed and treated very well, and they accomplished a lot. They were talking, they were exhausted, get tired because it's exhausting work, that what you're doing, especially on that scale. So it has changed for the better. I don't know what it is now. I'm sure it's even better. I hope it is. But it was just really funny to as you listen to Tania talking about that specific incident and thinking about what Deb said, and it's like, oh, it's identical. She felt the exact same way, Tania. I mean, that they got a lot done because it was so organized and because they were so welcoming. They wanted the peer support. Mm-hmm. There was no, oh, we don't need that. Yeah, we don't need that. We're tough. We can deal with this. We'll deal with that later. No, it was very welcoming to just talk, and so obviously everybody needs something different, and the professionals like Tania can figure that out. But the fact that people were there and available was a welcoming sight to those first responders. And so that's interesting. Two different perspectives, very similar in the same incident because it was so well organized.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. When I first started with Southwest Airlines, and it was right after 9/11 that I started with Southwest. Different company, different culture. They used to do these drills, and I'd go to Dallas for the drill. And I remember one year there was a crash in Boise, was the scenario, but everybody was alive. Only one flight attendant was injured. And I was like, no, like everybody's dead. And they were like, don't say that. And I was like, just because you prepare for it doesn't mean it's going to happen, but you have to prepare for it, right? You have to you have to prepare for, that plane didn't crash in a field. It crashed into a neighborhood and hit 5 houses and killed those people, And so it was very interesting to watch. The more I pushed that, the more they started to get into, and it was really, now their drills are full blown, intense, crazy, full blown. But back then, right after 9/11, there was this like sense of like, we don't want to go there. And it's just so important that you have to prepare for the absolute worst.
I've seen that over the years in instructing about officer down scenarios. But there are a lot of people that do not want to talk about that because they've either experienced it before and they still feel the pain from it, or they just go, well, we've never had that happen. We don't want to jinx it. We don't need to talk about that. And I just say, yes, you do. You need to talk about the worst case scenario because it can and will happen. It might not even be your agency. It might be your neighboring agency, and you're going to be involved in it. So you got to think about, preparing your mind and body and your tactics for that situation. Because if you don't, it's a shock to the system, and you will not function properly because you're human. You have to think about these things. So that's very interesting that an airline, you had to push them a little bit, say, I know you don't want to think about this in your drills, but guess what? The bad things happen in this world. And if you're prepared, it will benefit your employees. It will benefit everyone in the long run. Right? It can be painful to think about, but it's much more painful to not be prepared and then have it happen. And then you struggle to do anything. You can't accomplish anything. That's going to be painful too. I think it's more painful. We weren't ready. We weren't ready. We couldn't help anybody. Well, there's nothing worse than that feeling, Right. Good for you for pushing that.
Not wanting to talk about that to me is like the adult equivalent of pulling the sheets over your head so you can't see what,
Yep.
It's so important, like you said. So love that point.
It is.
It is.
So let's get into our first topic that we wanted to hit. And you said it was related directly to where we started here with the Texas floods. Moral injury. Talk about what that is and your perspective on that.
So, and I really like talking about this, as painful as it is. Identifying like what it is has been so important for so many people. Because when we do a 2-hour presentation called Trauma and Resilience, and we have a slide on the moral injury, and people are like, that's me. So moral injury, it was born out of combat, and it's when you are in a situation where decisions have to be made. And later on, for combat, you come home, and then sort of the thoughts start to seep into your brain. Like, am I a horrible person because I had to make these decisions? The example we use for combat is we deploy our Marines and soldiers to Iraq, and the insurgents put AKs in the hands of women and children and tell them to point them at our military members. And there's really only one choice, right? But then you come home and, you listen to everybody's opinions or not. Or maybe you listen to the news or not. But the thoughts still start to creep in. Like, am I a horrible human being because I had to make these choices? And so with the moral injury, if it's just a moral injury, and a lot of therapists get the moral injury and PTSD kind of jammed up and mixed up. And I see a lot of patients diagnosed with PTSD, but it's a moral injury. So with a moral injury, you don't have like the startle reflex and the flashbacks, but you have the anger, the despair, the negative thought process that is consistent with PTSD. And then you have a massive amount of shame, blame, and guilt. And it's the woulda, coulda, shouldas, which I refer to as the devil's playground in our minds, right? The woulda, coulda, shouldas. And it's very interesting because a lot of times when we're doing the eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy, the moral injury comes up a lot. And I like to point out, okay, so at the time, did you have all of this information? Or at the time, did you have, were you in fight or flight? At the time, were you backed into a corner and made to make some very difficult decisions? At the time, could you predict that this was going to happen, right? And so there's just a lot that human beings take on. I think for the floods, it was two things for the floods, and this is awful. But there is one camper who they never found. Her name is Seal. They found her flashlight, but they never found her. They found the rest, but they cannot find her. And there is so much moral injury connected to the fact that they could not find little Seal. And, how so many people feel like they've let her parents down, how they feel like they have failed. And they forget that they were basically out there in dangerous circumstances, not eating all day and getting barely any sleep for weeks on end, looking for her, and how hard that they worked. There was a point where they thought they found her, but it was not her. It was like a deer or something that, the dog had hit on. And so then there's this hope, and then there's this crash and burn, right? The other from the flooding event was, so our boat rescue crews from multiple like EMS and fire departments, when they got there, they put their boats in like they've done hundreds of times, right? Ready to go rescue. And what they do is very dangerous, and they're highly trained. And these are very, very fit individuals. Like these are like top of the game individuals. And what happened was, as the river went beyond the banks, it apparently had flushed out. There were 2 mines. And when it flushed out the mines, in the water was like this soot and silt and, and just garbage in the water, right? And it was like a fine sort of, you couldn't see it or smell it. So when they put their boats in the water and started the engines, and the engine pulled the water into it, it turned into putty, and it jammed their engines. And so they were like, what is this? So they cleared, right? And they tried again, and it jammed again. And then it overheated, and they couldn't figure out what the heck was happening to their engines. And they had to pull out. And so, and hearing people screaming and, all that. So you can look at like what people go through, and just like the mental flogging, that's the moral injury. Is it possible to have both? Absolutely. Right. And were there people who came from the flooding event who had both PTSD and the moral injury? Absolutely. And of course we addressed all of it in EMDR, but it is so hard to watch this in people, because that they're doing their absolute best. And who would have ever guessed that the rivers would go so far beyond the banks that it flushed out 2 mines, and that all this soot and silt just came back, right? Who would ever guess that would ever happen? That's nothing that they've ever trained for. It's nothing that they've ever dealt with. You have to design a brand new engine to combat this, right? And so that's the moral injury. And I feel like it causes so much pain in people. And then helping them see the bigger picture, and helping them and reminding them, to a lot of combat veterans, reminding them that, these people were shooting at you. And so it was either us or them. Yeah. And so, the military didn't train you to like stand by and do nothing. The military didn't train you to put your weapon down and not shoot back, right? And so it was either you or them. And so, and in EMDR, the R is reprocess. When we introduce that in the reprocessing phase, once people have processed the trauma well, they're able to see that.
So the EMDR is effective therapy for the moral injury and PTSD.
Absolutely.
But do you do it in different ways or different, without getting too technical? Is it the same treatment, and it just happens to work for both these cases?
Thank you to our sponsor, Shotover. Shotover Systems is the leading developer and manufacturer of high-performance gyro-stabilized cameras with advanced real-time AR mapping and mission management, all backed by unparalleled custom training and support. Now offering the M2 multi-sensor system, Sol 6-axis EO-IR platform with 4K Ultra HD color and infrared technology. Ideal for law enforcement and defense. Offered with real-time AR overlays to quickly identify streets, weather, and traffic. Automated license plate recognition, 24-megapixel digital photographs, and automated steering and tracking.
Yeah, it's the same treatment, works for both.
Okay.
It's just you just take it as it comes up, right? So as a therapist, of course, we're ready for anything that comes out of people's mouths in EMDR. And so what we do is we really, in the reprocessing, and this is why when you work with first responders and veterans, you have to have a good knowledge of what you do and what your terminology is and like what it means to do what you do.
Yeah.
Because helping guide people and reprocessing, you better kind of know what you better know. You better know use of force. You better know public safety. You better know rescue. And so, because otherwise you'll be lost. And so as it comes up and we reprocess, I really like to point out like those types of facts. Like, would you ever guess in all the hundreds of times that you've put your boat in a body of water that this would happen?
Yeah.
And the patients would be like, no, there's no way we could have known.
Yeah.
And so, and when they realize that, and I'll ask them, well, how is it to say that? And they'll say, it feels actually pretty good, like a weight lifted. Oh,
Right.
yeah. Lift the weight.
I think some things are not in your control.
Right.
You feel like they should be because you're a professional and you've done this so many times. You feel like, oh, well, we should have been able to overcome that. There are things that you can't overcome.
Right.
I mean, that's the first I've ever heard of that. That is bizarre. Like you said, who would have ever guessed?
Uh-huh.
And that's not something you can prepare for or train for or say, hey, in case this water ever goes into the mine, that stuff's going to mess with our engines. Nobody's thinking that. But as a dedicated lifesaver, we don't think that way, do we, Tanya? We think, no, there's something we could have done, right? And that's the problem of us beating ourselves up.
Right. Absolutely. And it's just torture. I always say the moral injury is a complete asshole. And it is. It is. And it's that what it could have should is that devil's playground in our minds. It is bad.
Yeah.
As you're talking about that particular incident, I was relating it to flight crews. And we talk about the importance of flight crews saying no all the time when it comes to weather or other mitigating factors that prevent us from responding to an incident. I started thinking about law enforcement flight crews. When you hear the chaos of an officer involved shooting, an officer down on the ground, and then you're tasked with responding and being unable to because of whatever the thing is, whether it's maintenance or weather or whatever the thing is, the scenario you paint is very relevant to that flight crew. Because I think every flight crew, once they say no, and if there's a negative outcome that's associated with that incident, they're going to blame themselves forever for not responding, even knowing that if they would have responded, there's a high likelihood that it would have made things worse. Have you seen that in your travels, Tanya?
All the time. Yes. The woulda, coulda, shouldas. Maybe if we had launched out, to the east and then come in from the south or, and meanwhile, and what you can do is really the tangible things like you can pull up the radar at the time and be like, you're really going to fly through that? And then we talk about the fact that it could become 4 additional fatalities in addition to what already happened. Right. And how awful the situation was, but how, they didn't cause that.
Mm.
And I think that's just so important to get help for that, because that stuff festers, right? And you become angry, you become jaded, you become defensive, you become, when you feel like you've failed, and who wants the F word, failure, right? It just impacts your personnel so significantly that if you don't give them the chance to process what happened effectively, this stuff lingers, right? It does linger. And then, on the anniversary, they're coming to work angry. They're coming to work hurting and not knowing what to do or say. But meanwhile, in their head, they know it's the anniversary. Maybe they're flying with a crew that wasn't working that day, and everybody's like, "What's your problem, dude?" And and it never gets addressed. And this is the kind of stuff, and it just manifests in so many directions, right? And how's your CRM that day? when you got one person completely pissed off and nobody knows why, and they can't verbalize it because nobody understands. Like it's just so easy to address it and acknowledge it and treat it versus having all these things happen over time.
Wow. Two things jump out at me there. One is it goes back to something, Tanya, you feel very strongly about. You just relate it, but on your first episodes, we talked about it a lot, how ride-alongs and learning what a firefighter and a police officer and a paramedic, learning what they go through by being there and seeing it and listening to the terminology and the emotion and seeing it. You're very, that's a high priority for you and your practice. I mean, we talked about that a lot, and you just said it again. So I think that's really important. And the second thing is I'm going to ask you about. So do you ramp things up come this July? I mean, are you anticipating in July, because of that anniversary, that do you proactively start kind of front loading some things there because of that?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. We'll be kind of reaching out, kind of touching base with our patients, as departments, if they have if they want to acknowledge or do a ceremony or something, we'll show up to those types of events as well. But yeah, the biggest thing is just touching base with our patients. Like, hey, I'm thinking about you this week.
Yes.
And if you need anything, I'm here. And sometimes people will come back in, and sometimes they're, they just want to shelf it, and sometimes they're good.
Yeah.
So,
do you find that people that have had success with their therapy and they're in a good place, things go good, but now the anniversary comes, do you find a lot of people, I don't want to say relapse, what's a better word, Tanya, but where they struggle again, they go back to a little bit, they take a step back? Do you find that happening a lot, or is it a small percentage? How does that work?
I'd say I think everybody has a rough time.
Sure.
Especially like the first, second, third anniversaries. And then it starts to get better for a lot of people. But I think that if someone is still struggling and it's been years, it's important to get help, right? One of my favorite people in this entire world is an NYPD officer. And I went up for the 1-year anniversary of 9/11. So I was down at the ground zero and President Bush was speaking, and that was an amazing ceremony. And then like the next year, I text all my NYPD buddies that I met, that I've stayed in touch with. And the next year he was sort of incognito until about like 7:00 at night. He texted me back and he's like, yeah, I'm just hibernating. I'm not going to work. And he didn't work another 9/11 until he retired. Smart. And nor should he.
Yeah.
But what I noticed over the years is that he started to respond sooner in the day and to come out of his apartment earlier in the day, right? The first few years, he didn't come out at all. And I barely got a response. And then I noticed on social media, he's with his friends. And then he would acknowledge, 9/11 and, really talk about the day and all that stuff. And when I went to Dallas, and I did a talk, it was a couple summers ago. It was actually for the 10-year anniversary of the day when the officers were killed on July 7th. And I asked him to write a testimonial. And he said that at some point he realized they're winning. I hibernate, they're winning in my mind. And he's like, this is my mind. This is if I'm going to get in the ring and I'm going to fight them and I'm going to do this. And he said this beautiful testimonial that I read at the end of my talk, and the Dallas officers loved it. Right. And so I think that, I think everybody struggles on the anniversary, but I think all of us at some point have to make sure that the struggle doesn't win, that the thing that happened doesn't win, that the people who caused it, they don't win. Right. And, and if you have childhood trauma, that doesn't win. Right. And I was just talking to a paramedic yesterday about really, really severe trauma that he sustained from his father. And I was like, you've already beaten the cycle and beaten the odds by not becoming him. And you made a conscious decision not to become your dad. But on top of that, though, now it's time to cut the cord so that it stops winning, right? And we were doing EMDR when we're having this discussion. And he's like, oh my gosh. I was like, because every time that you have an issue at work, he wins and he doesn't win. Forget that. Like, he doesn't win. And so we do a lot of that. Sometimes I sound more like a football coach.
That's okay. Huh?
No, I do a therapist.
You do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Whatever works. That's interesting.
I had a person who had a terrible experience in a dunker. And after the EMDR, we went to the pool and she was in the dunker. And I was like, you make that thing your bitch.
That's a coach. That's great.
And everybody's like, holy crap. Dr. Glenn? Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Yes. Few F-bombs too. But sometimes you sound more like a parent or a coach than a therapist.
Yeah. I should probably talk to Tania about my dunker training, huh, John? I probably think I need help on that too.
It's interesting what you bring up, because I think we've talked a lot about the initial response to a critical incident and how important that initial response is. We haven't talked a lot up until now about the ongoing care for that initial response to a traumatic incident. I think as leaders, it would be our job then to take care of the folks that work with us, and kind of, especially if you're in a smaller unit, have an understanding of, hey, this person over here was involved in a shooting 5 years ago on this date, or they were involved in a crash that, whatever the date was. What advice would you give to those leaders as far as looking out for those folks and taking care of those folks in and around that anniversary date of something traumatic?
I think that the best reach out is going to come from peer support. Like, if I were a police chief and I had an officer involved in a shooting, I would be tapping into peer support to be checking on the officer. But as a chief, I would also acknowledge, hey, I know that, we're approaching the 1 year or 2 year anniversary. And I just want to tell you that I'm so glad you're alive. And I can't thank you enough for staying on and for healing and doing all the things you continue to do for the citizens of our city. I think that means a lot to people, and maybe they don't read that email or that card or that note that day, but maybe they read it a few weeks later when they're ready to read it. But it it's amazing. As human beings, just acknowledging and showing gratitude and allowing your plan, your system to do what it does, to do the reach outs, super important. And I think it goes a long way. I really do.
Let's wow, time's flying by. This is unbelievable. I knew this would be wonderful again. I just love talking to you, Tania. It's so easy, and you're so passionate about what you do, and you've had such a great impact on so many. So we'll definitely have you back. We want to have you back regularly to do these things. But I want to really touch on one thing that's on your website called Smashing the Stigma. And there's a video that's kind of based on your book, Warriors and Healers. And so talk about Warriors and Healers. And then let's just talk about one of the people that you helped from that book. His name is Donnie. And he's the first one in the video. I just rewatched it the other night. I think Donnie really relates to our audience directly in so many ways. So let's talk about Warriors and Healers, and tell us about Donnie and how that affected both Donnie and you.
So Warriors and Healers is my 10th book. And I wanted to, for my 10th book, because it was number 10, I wanted to do something really, what I thought was kind of very cool, is I picked the most significant patients from each discipline that I had treated in my career, like the ones that stuck with me the most or impacted me the most. And I wanted them to tell their story, and then I would talk about what it was like to be their therapist. So we produced this book, and we're having a book launch, and my amazing publisher is sitting across from me, and she's like, so you're going to turn this into a documentary? And I was like, no, I don't think so. And then the next day I'm like, yeah, I think so.
That's good.
That's how decisions are made. So we produced the documentary. Had a really, really nice time doing it. So all of our documentaries are on YouTube, but if you go to smashingthestigma.com, they're just loaded right there. So Donnie was my police officer, and Donnie he works for Austin Police Department, and he's very open about an incident that happened. He and his partner, Rob, are at the top of their game. SWAT, they're fit, they're amazing human beings, very, very effective police officers. And there's a homicide downtown. The suspect is at large. They've identified one person in the crowd who is behaving erratically and not following commands. And they engage him. And ultimately what happens is, he went through the force science class, which I went through that as well. Fascinating how body position and how quickly people move is, So ultimately what happens is they end up tasing him, but he was already down on his knees. It was ruled as an okay use of force, but then the department came after the two of them and they put them on unpaid leave, and they were both struggling. So Donnie came in at the recommendation of a friend, and Donnie, good gosh, I mean, I have never felt so helpless as a therapist. Give me some trauma, got it. But I'd sit across from Donnie every time he came in, and I would look at him, really unable to fix this, unable to mitigate it, unable to lift the burden, unable to do all this stuff we've been talking about today about EMDR and all this stuff, because he's facing the trial of a lifetime, the fight of a lifetime, right? He had to get a job as a fitness trainer at a gym to survive. His wife is pregnant with their first child. He's beside himself. And I felt completely helpless. I felt like, man, I can't do anything for him. And then it was also, for me, this double whammy. I was like, what if my patient ends up in prison? Like, what if this person that I care deeply about ends up in prison, getting killed or beaten up or whatever, I can't even imagine his wife's stress, right? And so then, and Donnie sometimes would bring Rob in, and he'd be like, I'm going to give my session today to Rob. And Rob would come in once in a while, and I would joke with them like, so is this couples counseling or because sometimes they would just sit in together, right?
Yeah.
So Donnie describes the getting his lawyers and the legal team and force science stuff and the fight of a lifetime, and he goes on to trial, which was a week and a half torture. And ultimately, Travis County jury found both of them not guilty on all charges, right? And then they have to go through the fact that the department won't hire them back. So they go through arbitration, right? And it was such a mess. And I love Donnie because he's so open about it and he shares it just openly. Like,
it's amazing how open he is and open and honest. Amazing.
Yeah. Like gut-wrenching interview, right?
Yes.
And and I'm so grateful for him. But I think that I picked Donnie as my police officer because I have never felt like I cannot do anything to serve you. I can't help you. I can't take this away from you. And so often we do that in trauma treatment. And so that's Donnie.
Well, you say that, Tania, but my feeling walking away from watching Donnie is that you did help him. You did save him. And I think, are you being overcritical of yourself? Or do you feel like in hindsight now you're seeing things and going, yeah, maybe some of that worked? Because I felt like you saved Donnie. That is the impression I got from Donnie's words. Yeah. But you are seeming to say, man, I couldn't really help him. So what's the reality of the outcome now that you look back on it?
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
I think it's the hindsight. Like, now that I look back and, and he, of course, he expressed gratitude every day back then, but I think that the documentary, when I did his interview, because I'm sitting right next to the camera and he's looking at me, right? And I was really shocked that he felt like I helped him that much. Because from my perception, it was not the norm. Like, it was not, Tania Glenn's going to swoop in and she's going to do some magic EMDR stuff with a blue light on her finger, and she's going to take away your trauma and she's going to move it to your long-term memory and you're going to stop having nightmares and being triggered. It was none of that. It was sitting through gut-wrenching months and months and months and hearing what the DA was saying about them and what the department was saying about them. And it was like, I felt like I wanted to just crawl out of my skin and just scream, everybody just stop. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was not just a use of force event. You could deal with that as therapists. This was a use of force that led to charges, that led to discipline. It was like a waterfall that never ends. It was overwhelming listening to him. It was painful at times to listen and just go, how did this guy make it through this? Could I do that? I don't know. I mean, it just didn't stop. I think that is that part of the issue here, that it wasn't just an event that you could look at specifically. It just kept it was like a pile on.
Yes.
Once one thing's accomplished, oh my gosh, not guilty. Yeah, but you're out of a job. It's like, are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. I was just found not guilty. Was that the problem, that it was just like a waterfall and just kept coming and coming and coming?
It kept coming and coming and coming. And then they got their jobs back, but they were put in the box and not allowed to do law enforcement work. Yeah. And so, and so it's just like, it's like a nightmare where like you're yelling or trying to get somebody's attention and they can't hear you and you're screaming and screaming and screaming and they can't, it's like it doesn't stop and there's nothing you can do. And so, every time there's a success, like a not guilty by a Travis County jury, and then, no, you can't have your job back. And then the arbitrators, like they can have their jobs back. And then they're like, well, we're not going to let you do any enforcement work. And it's like, just stop. What is this about? What is this ego tug of war about? Like, why does this continue? Right.
Yeah.
And of course it took, changing the chief to get them back out.
Yeah. Funny how that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that we had to cut from that, because the documentary it's long and all the interviews were long. Yeah. So a couple of years later, after all that, there's an active shooter. And Donnie killed the active shooter who was about to kill a bunch of people at a restaurant. Oh. And he went from zero to hero.
How about that too?
How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that part.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And it just shows you that, hey, this guy was, like you said, top of his game. He's the real deal.
Right.
And his department and his county and his district attorney treated him like crap over a nothing. Mm-hmm. And it happens in law enforcement. That's why it was so valuable to listen to and learn about. Yeah. But one other thing I want to ask you about, I saw something on you during that interview that you got emotional when you were being interviewed about Donnie's case. Yeah. And that struck me. Talk about that.
So that's the first time in a documentary that's happened.
Yeah.
And it was that point where I was talking about like wondering week after week, like, what if my patient goes to prison?
Yeah.
And just like how helpless I felt. Like I felt just so, again, it's back to that helplessness, right? I can't fix this. I can't stop this. How difficult that was, knowing what a great person he is, knowing how amazing his wife is and their brand new baby, and it was, so it was tough. So we shot that Donnie's portion in his living room. And Donnie and his wife, Michelle, are off to the side. And I'm looking at the cameraman and I hear Donnie start to cry. And I was like, holy shit. Like, well, I'm going to lose my shit. Yeah. And it was like, and he said afterwards that, and it wasn't until he had read the book, and then of course he heard me say it, that he realized that he had had that impact on me. And he's like, Tanya, I'm so sorry. He's like, I wouldn't pick another therapist, but look what I put you through. And I was like, it was worth everything. It was worth everything.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that the night of the not guilty verdict, he texted me and he's like, and I had already seen it on the news, the news sort of news flash. But he texted me and he's like, hey, we're heading out to this bar. And I, as therapists, we're not supposed to go drinking with our clients. And I wanted to go so bad. I didn't because I didn't want anybody to see and, blah, blah, and turn it into something. I figured, like anybody can turn anything into anything.
That's right.
But I wanted to go out with them so badly. I wanted to go celebrate and kick our heels up and go dancing and, and just, but I didn't. But, walking through that, it just made me realize like this was as much of a journey as it was for him. It was a journey for me too.
Yeah.
And just getting through that was, that was tough. It was really
tough. The documentary conveys that clearly.
Thank you.
I mean, it was so genuine, both of you. Donnie, man, I just, I sat there thinking, this is a courageous man right here. This not because he could shoot an active shooter or because he was a cop or a SWAT guy. No, because he's willing to share on video and in print his story. That takes courage. We've said that before, huh, John? I mean, to Jimmy Hatch and to Al Mack, and Jimmy Hatch. I mean, he revealed his demons to the world in his book. I admired that so much more than anything he did as a SEAL Team 6 member. Mm-hmm. And I've told him that multiple times. He probably gets tired of hearing it. But it's true. It's true. It takes courage to sit there and talk about your story and your supposed weaknesses. We all have those weaknesses. But to talk about the things that you go through, and you do it too. You just did it by telling his story. You did it by writing about it. You did it sitting there in front of the camera just like he did. You took courage too by talking about something. But the end result is a product that will help people. It's not called smashing the stigma for nothing. I mean, it's that's what it's all about. It's smashing that stigma and saying, wow, this is a professional doctor, somebody with 30 plus years. And look, she's emotional about this. Mm-hmm. Look, this is an experienced SWAT officer. And look at him, revealing what he went through emotionally and mentally and the dark places he was getting to. That takes courage. So bravo to you and Donnie. I'd like to shake Donnie's hands someday. But John, anything about this?
Yeah, that story that Donnie told struck me in a lot of ways. As he's talking through being a police officer, he talks about being accustomed to violence, death, chaos. What he talks about when it comes to the agency kind of coming after him struck me as, as police officers, we put a lot of defenses and barriers in place to protect us from what we see and deal with in the field. Right. We often don't think we have to protect ourselves from our own agency and the people that are supposed to have our backs. And that sense of betrayal that he felt, and then a lot of people feel when they go through something like that is immeasurable. Yeah. The scene that kind of came to mind as I'm thinking through that sense of betrayal is from Braveheart, when Robert Wallace, he makes a deal with, I think it was Robert the Bruce. Robert the Bruce is supposed to back him in battle, and he gets attacked. And he ends up finding out that Robert the Bruce is actually the one that attacked him, and that sense of betrayal that you see on his face when he's laying on the ground after he was attacked is what I envision his face being when he finds out the agency is the one that's not allowing him to put the badge on. It's
a good one, John.
It's a very powerful feeling. Again, you shouldn't have to defend yourselves from the folks that are supposed to back you, but a lot of people do. So it was very powerful and moving.
That's such a great analogy. That's such a great example. Yeah. And it was really tough. It was really tough watching them both go through this and and Donnie's wife, it was just horrible.
My academy class from November of '83 was given a questionnaire, a mental wellness questionnaire, in 1983, and then we were given that same questionnaire periodically for the next, I want to say, 15 to 20 years. Every now and then, you'd get this thing in the department mail, and you'd have to fill it out again. And I don't remember a whole lot about it, but it had to do with stresses. What stresses you, what things that you experience, how you feel about them, kind of thing. And again, I don't remember the specifics, but what I do remember is talking about the results. And the results were that internal stress from the department far outweighed any shooting, use of force, death, destruction, awful things that you had to do and see. It outweighed it by far.
Yeah.
And I've told that to people, cops, that go, "Oh, that's silly." And I just go, no, it's not silly at all. You must be lucky that you work for maybe a really good chief, or most of them are smaller departments that say that, by the way.
Yeah.
But on a big department, it is oftentimes the leadership or the structure or the district attorney or the city or the mayor, the internal stuff that is much more stressful. Do you find in your practice that to be true as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Like people say all the time, I'd rather get shot at than get betrayed by my department.
Yes.
Or this is so much worse than getting into the nastiest fight, or the nastiest fatality working, the politics, right?
Yes.
It's just, and if there's a way we could start to remedy that and make it, but you're right. The smaller departments will be the officers who will perhaps say, "Oh, that doesn't exist here."
Yeah.
Lucky you. Lucky you.
That's
Stay where
right.
you are.
Stay right there. Don't go anywhere, and say a little prayer every day, and say thank you, because the reality in many, many departments is that there is this, gotcha attitude, and it takes a toll on people, and it changes lives. It changed Donnie's life and his partner's life dramatically. I mean, he will never quite be the same as he was before because of that. And it was unnecessary. Obviously, like you said, Travis County found him not guilty on all counts. That's a clue that this was not nonsense. But it ended up being made big by somebody, which is why the other topic we love, John, is leadership, because it's all about leadership. We just had two chiefs on the other day. That episode's going to be coming up. You're going to love it. People that are real leaders and would have never let that happen to Donnie because they put their people first, and it's so important. We don't realize until you hear stories like Donnie's, and those are not rare stories. They're not rare, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But that was really good. I encourage everyone to check that video out and watch all of them, all of the stories, but watch Donnie. Yeah. I mean, it's the first one in the video, and you will, as law enforcement, you will be able to relate to Donnie in a powerful way, I think.
I do also want to say that thank goodness that an interim chief saw right through all that and restored their enforcement duties. An interim chief, and their ability to stand up to what's already been done and do the right thing. Amazing.
Yeah,
right?
I admire that too. That takes courage.
It does.
I get it. I see these big city chiefs, and there's a lot of pressure. There didn't used to be as much, but now there is, from outside entities and mayors and city councils and stuff. And I won't say most, a lot of them cave in to that. They just cave in, and it's just to keep that paycheck coming. But when you look at things and you just say, well, this is just wrong, I'm going to fix this. This is common sense. This is wrong. I'm going to fix it. And I'm going to get a phone call from the mayor. Big deal. This is wrong. And so kudos to that interim chief for doing the right thing and helping move this along in the right direction. Wow. Our time has flown by. Tania works for a living, unlike John and I, and she's got lots of stuff to do, but So before I wrap things up, John, any closing thoughts for Dr. Tania Glenn?
Just so thankful that you're able to join us again. Again, want to promote the articles that you write in Vertical and check that out. They're really good articles. The one that I referenced, Cleared for Recovery, was a great article. Everything that she's written in Verticals has been amazing. Thank you for your contributions and for standing up for our industry. There's a lot of folks who I feel like, for whatever the reason, don't make the effort to do it, and you do. So thank you for that. And again, thank you for joining us, and look forward to having you in the next one. And also look forward to seeing you at the Vertical MRO conference.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate all of that. Thank you.
Tania, any closing words of wisdom for our listeners before I wrap things up?
I will say that if you go to smashingthestigma.com and you watch any of the documentaries, they are really raw. And that's the way I like it, because this is raw. It's real. So I always encourage people that when you watch it, take a big deep breath, and it's okay to hit pause and walk away. Some of my viewers have said, it took me like 6 times to get through the documentary, because I would have to just stop and pick it back up or, start over and that kind of stuff. So I think that I would just caution anybody who maybe is struggling, you will find a lot of hope and a lot of help and a lot of ideas and a lot of information, but it's real and raw. So I would just say, just use caution. And then the other words of wisdom is practice acts of kindness, whether it's strangers or people you care about, right? If you are looking at someone who's struggling and you don't know how to help, and you've asked, like, what can I do? And they're like, I don't know. Just look at what needs to be done. Maybe it's mowing their lawn or, walking the dogs or taking care of their kids for a few hours. Those kinds of things are so, so helpful. So those beautiful, tangible things, do those.
Outstanding. Wonderful way to wrap things up, Tania.
Thank
You're
you.
amazing. You've done so much for so many, and the aviation community is one that you've been close to for a long time. That's how we met, through the old ALEA, now APSA, from going to conventions and you instructing. And so we look forward to having you back again. We'd like to make this almost a regular thing where we can talk about topics, current events pop up, things like that. But in the meantime, if you're interested in more, smashingthestigma.com, the videos are there. TaniaGlenn.com, TaniaGlenn.com, Tania Glenn. And look for her warrior wisdoms on social media. They're wonderful. I mean, they really do impact you. And you just go, wow, I'm going to think about that. So with that, Tania, thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Thank you.
It was wonderful. You're so easy to talk to. We learned so much from you. And that's why, everybody needs to go back to episodes 176 and 177. We learned so much from that. And we got so many incredible comments about that, including, I'll tell him, Derek from MHM. Derek came to both of us after that and said, that's the gold standard. His exact words. That's the gold standard of the podcast. And that meant a lot to us. I mean, because we felt that way too. When we hung up with you last time, we went, oh my gosh, if we could do that every day, that'd be great. And if there'd be, 1,000 Tania Glenns out there, the world would be in a better place too. So we feel lucky that you are part of the MHM family, and we feel lucky that you came on with us again. So thank you, Tania. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thanks everybody for listening. We really appreciate everybody's support. Sending vitamin G to everybody, and including you, Tania, sending you some vitamin G for gratitude. Tracy will be happy that I'm using that, because she feels that way strongly. So vitamin G to everybody. Everybody stay safe out there, and we will catch you the next time on the Hangar Z podcast.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers.
Thank you to our sponsor, Shotover. Shotover Systems is the leading developer and manufacturer of high-performance gyro-stabilized cameras with advanced real-time AR mapping and mission management, all backed by unparalleled custom training and support. Now offering the M2 multi-sensor system, Sol 6-axis EO/IR platform with 4K Ultra HD color and infrared technology. Ideal for law enforcement and defense. Offered with real-time AR overlays to quickly identify streets, weather, and traffic. Automated license plate recognition, 24 megapixel digital photographs, and automated steering and tracking. Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability, so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com. Thank you to our sponsor, Wysong Enterprises. Wysong Enterprises offers specialty rotorcraft completion facility, focusing on solutions and installs for customers in various industries, including EMS, law enforcement, energy utility, forestry, tourism, security, and corporate applications across major OEM platforms. Visit us at wysongusa.com.
We hope you enjoyed this conversation with Dr. Tania Glenn. Her unwavering support of first responders and our military is truly incredible. And today's discussion gave us a deeper understanding of moral injury and the therapy that helps to address it. The story of Donnie from her book, Warriors and Healers, was especially powerful and incredibly timely. As you go about your daily lives, don't forget Tania's reminder about the impact of small acts of kindness. We all need to continue supporting one another in law enforcement and beyond. We're looking forward to having Dr. Glenn back on the podcast soon to keep the conversation going and continue learning more about mental wellness. Until then, make sure you're getting a little vitamin G into your daily routine. Thank you for all the support of the Hangar Z podcast. Stay safe, and we'll catch you the next time on the Hangar Z.